Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our council committee meeting for January 11th, 2022. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional territories and the oral practices of the Blackfoot Nation, which include the Siksika, the Kainai, and the Piikani. We also acknowledge the Statina, the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. We're making this acknowledgement to demonstrate our continuing efforts to work together as we strive for reconciliation through increased and collective learning. Okay, we have the agenda in front of us there, and our first guest this afternoon is Quentin Randall from the Palliser Economic Partnership. You got the floor there, Quentin.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. Anyways, Brooks City Council, thanks for having me in today. I'm going to try to keep this brief. I am with Palliser Economic Partnership, which is one of 10 regional economic development associations throughout the province. We call them REDAs for short. We receive, kind of just how the structure is we receive provincial funding for economic development activities. And then we have 19 community members in Southeast Alberta. And so essentially what we do is we advocate for economic development in the region and help our partners and our members undertake economic development projects. We work with the EDOs within each region. So obviously in the Brooks region, it's your Brooks Region Economic Development Office folks. And so, so I want to talk about what Palliser Economic Partnership is. If you're not familiar, Brooks has been a member in the past, and essentially we are asking that Brooks considers joining Palliser Economic Partnership again. And so, I just wanted to come here today and speak with you folks, put that in your minds, and kind of give you an overview of what we've been doing the last year, kind of what the benefits are for Palliser Economic Partnership and, being a member for that. So, with that, I guess, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So like I said, we are an economic development group, 19 members. We receive provincial funding. REDAs are the only economic development group that I know of that actually receives like operational funding. Obviously, provincial projects or provincial funding can go towards any project, and I know the Brooks region gets provincial funding for projects as well. But we do have that direct connection up into the province through jobs, economy, and innovation. And so in the past year, the two main projects that we've been focusing on are value-added agriculture and hydrogen. And so there are a couple reasons why we looked at those projects. One of the most important is that we wanted to align ourselves with what the province and with what the federal government is, A, allocating funding for, and B, kind of what their primary focus areas are. And so if you're aware, I know the city of Brooks is part of the same hydrogen project that we are part of. So I'll start with that project first. So it's a regional hydrogen strategy. It includes the city of Brooks, the city of Medicine Hat, which is also a Palliser Economic Partnership member. It includes us as PEP. It includes Apex, which is Medicine Hat College, Alberta Innovates, and Community Futures Entrecore, and then a number of private partners as well. And these private partners are typically interested in reducing their emissions and getting as close to net zero carbon emissions as they can. So that's why we're all working together on this. This regional hydrogen strategy is the second one being undertaken in the province. The first one is up in the Edmonton region. And because we came together as a group, all of us, we were actually able to kind of not skip the queue, but we ended up getting ahead of places like Calgary and Red Deer and Lethbridge, who were also, they're very interested in this project. And since we've started as a group, Calgary has also come on board, but we're positioned now to be the second hydrogen hub in Alberta. And essentially what the initial project that we're working on is, it's going to be done approximately in March. It's essentially to see what our assets are, see what kind of, I'm going to say, the size of the hydrogen market is down here. So we're looking at, this project is looking at, heavy emitters. So obviously the Medicine Hat facilities, Methanex, CanCarb, CF, Brooks and Newell County are also obviously really important with JBS Canada. And just in general, like agricultural emissions and all of that sort of stuff. And so that's the whole idea, is to get a really concrete number about what the size of the market is in this area, so that we can understand and start to communicate how we can get hydrogen production here to help all of our other industries. So it's kind of, a double-edged sword in terms of a benefit, right? If it's produced here and it's used here, best case scenario. The other part of it with our project that I think is a little bit more, I won't say that, but anyways, another big part of this is how does carbon capture and utilization fit into this whole hydrogen economy? So that's another thing that we're looking at. I know there's a lot of focus on not just storage of carbon, like putting it underground. Our gas wells are potentially assets for that within all of southern Alberta. But also, how do we use the carbon? How do we turn it into another project or another product? So that's what this project is doing. And like I said, PEP is a member of that, as well as Brooks Region and everyone else that I mentioned. The other project that we're spending a lot of time on is the value-added agriculture project. And so essentially what that project does, I'm going to back up a little bit here. I've been doing economic development for about 6 years, 7 years. And we've had lots of talks with trade offices at the provincial level and at the federal level. We've had potential investors come out into the Palliser region and talk about, what they want or what they need. And the conversations always go really good until the question gets asked, what do you have? And essentially, what's it going to cost? And then the room usually goes to crickets, because we don't really have those answers all that well, which is disappointing, because these folks are here, and in many cases, they're the folks that would actually write checks for worthwhile projects. And so essentially what Palliser Economic Partnership spent 2021 doing was evaluating, like, what are the primary commodities in this region being all of PEP, and how can we actually write projects that we could go and, I say that are bankable, that you could actually go and take to a banker or an investor and say, look, this works because we have the assets in this area. We have the commodities in this area. We know what the markets look like. This is how a facility cash flows, for example, and this is how it services its debts, all of those questions. And so PEP spent the last year building those out. And so we've actually completed them now for a chickpea processing facility, a flour mill, and a seed cleaning facility. And so just kind of high level, the chickpea processing facility comes in at $36 million. And we've broken down, how a bank would approach that, so they need X amount of dollars before they finance it. And then, if there was interest at the local level, you get theoretically local producers to come in with parts of that initial money, like a down payment or whatever you want to call it. And then you can go back to to your financiers for the rest. And so we've done that with all of them. Chickpea processing is roughly 36 million. The flour mill is a smaller scale facility, which is, we did that because, we didn't want everything to be like, big smokestacks, unrealistic stuff. So the flour mill is exciting as well. It comes in at about $500,000. And looking at seed cleaning, primarily for lentils, at like $2 to $4 million. And then in addition, we did one specifically for Sprague's Meat, which is out in the village of Rosemary, for a slaughter facility. And that facility is that was for a slaughter facility to get federally inspected. Anyways, I went through this. We found international markets that have high incidences of imports of these products, but almost no Canadian presence. And so, we looked at that and said, well, if we had the facilities, we could probably sell into those markets. We had good trading relationships with the markets we looked at. But anyways, these projects were developed by folks that actually have like banking backgrounds and accounting backgrounds. And so this year, we're actually spending the time to share these with our members and really encourage, let's put together some sort of ownership groups and try to actually figure out how we can raise the money so that we can go and get the rest and ultimately get these facilities put in the ground. So those are essentially the two main projects that we're working on. And yeah, it's very exciting times. In terms of, I know you folks, as well as like every municipality across Alberta and across Canada, are talking about, it's value for money and, all those sorts of questions. And so the projects that we have been a part of, we spent, I just wrote the notes here, we spent just shy of $32,000 last year on projects. The value of those projects are $208,000. So when we think about leveraging up our money, which is really where our benefit is, we're at about 6.5% or 6.5 times what gets in, what comes out. I can't remember, but last year I think we were at about 4 times, which is still good, but obviously we're going in the right direction. And so the other benefit that I think about for PEP that I would really like, you folks to consider is a lot of the federal and provincial grants that are coming out now really ask for collaboration. And so, again, I'm really familiar with the Brooks region, and Lisa and I work really closely together. The Brooks region is 4, 5. It's 4 or 5. PEP is 19, and so between us, the Brooks region, and kind of whoever else, if there are any projects that anybody wants to tackle, if we're involved, you can automatically say there are 19 members that are in support of this. And so that's in our minds a really big benefit. In terms of our operations, we are, we're a reasonably small organization, but we run extremely lean. We are sustainable at the current levels with our members and with the money that we get from the province. And we're actually currently looking at a very small surplus for next year, which is I think helpful. And so then that money goes into our reserves, and then we can use it for projects again in the future. So that's essentially it. Yeah, and like I said, Brooks has been a member in the past. John and I, Mayor Petrie, we've met in the past. We'd really like to have Brooks back in. Newell County is a member of PEP. So is Bassano. So is Dutchess and Rosemary. So anyways, yeah, we'd really like to be able to come back and work with you folks. Ideally, if we can find projects to work on together, that's an even better case scenario. Like I said, we do have the hydrogen project that we're all working on really closely together. But this would kind of, I think, formalize and strengthen that relationship that we already have. So I think that's essentially it. If there are any questions now, I'd love to hear them.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor. Good enough.
Thanks for your updates and just what's going on. I'm just curious, when we left PEP, or when we resigned from there, I can't remember all the circumstances behind that in the conversations, but I'm just curious, what does PEP bring to the table for Brooks specifically? And I think a lot of times when we partner with some groups, it seems like Medicine Hat gets quite a bit of the deals, but what about for Brooks? In the years that we've been a part of PEP, what what can you say that you guys contributed to bringing that economic growth to us?
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I will say my history with Palliser Economic Partnership, I've been in this chair, actually, I just came up on a year. So my history on that doesn't go back a ton. You know, we really approach this as a largely, you know, like a regional collaboration. And so, you know, on the one hand, we say, you know, it's tough to say like what one community is going to get out of it. But I know that's not always, you know, super satisfying to hear or honestly to say all the time. But really, it is, you know, the strength of the region benefits all communities, right? So that is the one thing. On the other hand, there are also, you know, projects that come up. Like, I don't know of any, but like if the city of Brooks has a project that they wanted to implement, but they needed more funding, you know, PEP would be there. And obviously it's kind of like your money coming back to you. But again, you know, the city of Brooks or Brooks Region Economic Development puts in money, PEP puts in money, and then we have the opportunity to go after further grants. And again, you know, they look for collaboration. And so when we do that, it's, even if it was just Brooks Region and PEP, now we can say it's not just two community or two organizations, it's now 19. You know what I mean? So long story short, it's a little bit, you know, just general regional collaboration and regional cooperation, and rising tide floats all boats. But it also, it really is a huge benefit for leveraging further funding for projects that are meaningful to you folks. And we're always listening to our members about what projects you're looking at, and then, you know, let's go forward with them if it makes sense.
Go ahead, Councilor Jessica.
Yeah, so how much is the current membership cost, or how is it allocated? Is it a per capita membership fee?
Yeah, no, good question. So it is for this coming year, our fiscal year starts April 1st. And so, yeah, we're coming up on that, obviously. And it's $1.30 per person.
So for Brooks, it'd be about 19,000, right?
I think so. You guys are at about 14,000 population. Is that right? Somewhere around there? Yeah, so we're
about
looking at
15,000,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
And is that standard across the board? Everybody pays the same then? Like Medicine Hat would pay one, what did you?
Well, $1.30.
$1.30.
Yep. So we do have, just this year, we did implement a fee cap structure. And that's at $20,000. So, yeah, so anything over and above $20,000. Long story short, Medicine Hat pays $20,000. And we just put that fee cap in
Why
place.
did you do that?
Hey?
Why did you do that?
Well-
So normally they'd pay about, they're about 60,000, about 80,000.
They were at about $85,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, honestly, you know, that was a request that came from the city of Medicine Hat to reevaluate the, you know, the way that we collected memberships. Part of it was the province dropped their funding from $100,000 to $50,000. So, anyways, yeah, that was a conversation that we had with the city of Medicine Hat.
Alan, yeah.
So we're expecting then, if we're at 15,000, we don't know where we are over 14 right now, but we expect to be over 15,000. So if we're at 15,000, then we'd be paying $19,500, just $500 less than.
Just $500 less, yeah.
Than the city of Medicine Hat at.
Yep.
More than twice the size.
Yeah, well, and so if we, I mean, you know, I don't want to get into this conversation now,
Yeah.
but if that, you know, if that ends up being a deal breaker, you know, we're open to solutions.
Councilor Idris, yeah.
And that is my understanding that there was some sort of a new tier system in terms of memberships. Is that not the case?
No, that's not the case. So everybody gets up to 2 voting members on the PEP board. But no, there's no tiered system. If you're a member, you're a member. So, you know, the village of Dutchess, for example, I think they pay, let's say like $800 or something like that per year. They get 2 members just like everybody else. But no, there's no tiered system, there's no associate memberships, it's just, you're in 2 votes. And not everyone brings 2 votes to the table. But yeah, that's how it's structured.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks for your time.
All right, thank you,
Yeah, no, yeah,
everybody. I hope to hear from you soon.
And thanks for meeting in person, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to come up.
Okay, have a nice trip back there, Quentin. Yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on here now, we'll go to the bylaw 2201, the procedural bylaw. Amy.
Thank you. Through the chair to mayor and council. We've recently updated the city's procedural bylaw to align with current practice of council and council committee meetings, and the following updates have been made. We've added a definition for acting mayor, appointing an acting mayor, and assigning duties throughout the bylaw, replacing in-camera and in-camera session with closed meeting, appointing the deputy and acting mayor at each organizational meeting, changing council committee meetings to being held when required rather than regularly, including a reference to the public notification bylaw when communicating the date and or time change of a meeting, including assigning signing authority on the agenda items to be approved at an organizational meeting, removing council of the whole from the bylaw as this process is similar to closed meetings, removing the listing of items that may be discussed in closed meetings as the items are listed in the FOIP Act, removing the requirement for agenda items to be urgent in order to add them to the agenda at a meeting, and removing the 2/3 approval in order to add a non-urgent agenda item, reorganizing the order of agenda items and removing the requirement for 2/3 approval to differ from the order presented, removing the requirement to have unanimous consent for a delegation to present for longer than 10 minutes, also removing the audio recording requirement as meetings are now streamed and posted and stored on the city's social media accounts, also removing the limit of times that a council member may speak on an item, and removing the time limit on council and council committee meetings. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the recommendation is to forward the bylaw to council.
Any questions? I just have one there, just, when we bring in delegations to speak, removing the requirement to have unanimous, when we bring them in, we just say that you have 10 minutes, right?
Through the chair to Mayor Petrie, yes, it's communicated that they have 10 minutes to present. Sometimes people or groups may say that 10 minutes wouldn't be enough, so we would allocate 15 minutes possibly on a case-by-case basis, but now you just have the ability to allow them to go over that time limit as the chair.
Okay, yeah. And our meetings can go, like, if we want to go to like 10 o'clock at night, Councilor Idris wouldn't mind then. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Oh, sorry, Alan, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you do get too long, so you can take a motion to set the time for adjourn if you need to, or somebody can make a motion to adjourn, and it's has high precedent, that motion, you'd have to vote on it, so, no, you can't keep us here all night.
Okay. Bill, did you have a question? Bill, yeah, Councilor Prentice.
Yeah, that was at 6:30 time, we have to, get some extra time, but the other night we sat here at a meeting, we had 14 staff sitting here for 2 hours or whatever it is, and it's just doesn't make any sense to me. Those people work all day, and they have to go home and have supper and then come back the next morning. I think it's a little harsh, but I don't know whether they all had to be here or not, but there was 14 staff, and there's 6 of us, so it just doesn't add up to me for some reason. They've got to be compensated somewhere from their time and whatever, and
Yeah.
and it should be set up somehow that if,
Yeah, I don't really see a way around that, though. I know, the only thing I know, and I think Alan and I are cognizant of that, to, to keep the agenda as brief as possible, or keep your time limit, especially with delegations. And I know we had a meeting was it would have been last August or something, we had about 3 delegations here at the one meeting, and that one went till about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And I think we have to sort of be aware, myself and Alan too, that, okay, well, we're not gonna bring in those, delegations. And the other thing that Alan and I talked about too is when we give our committee reports, that not all councillors give the, committee reports at the same meeting, that, these 3 over here give it at, the first meeting of the month, those 3 give it at the second meeting, and that will speed up the process a little bit there too.
Well, anything to save staff from staying that long is.
Yeah.
Maybe change the items on the agenda so you don't have to keep them, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and that's a good point there too, Bill, yeah, okay, Alan.
One of the issues that we run into if we do that is, we like to have the managers here because there is questions that come up and from the media or elsewhere, and it's always nice to have the person that can answer that question here.
Okay, any other questions on it? Okay. Oh, Mohammed, yeah, Councillor Idris? Yeah.
Just in the agenda item for the meetings, and I have felt some awkwardness doing this in the last couple of meetings, which is the land acknowledgement. If we have that as the very first thing, as happened today, for example, before we approve the agenda, that I don't know if that affects the Roberts rules or anything. Here it's, as it's set here, I think it's the third item on the agenda.
Yeah, and normally we haven't been doing the land acknowledgement at the council committee meetings. We've been just doing that at the council meetings there, but I don't know what the procedure is on that or how we go about doing that. I think by law we have to do that, right? Or is our own bylaws on that? Okay, Alan, you can
No,
kind of clarify.
We don't have to do it, but I know the former mayor, we thought if we put it as, instead of before the meeting starts and part of the meeting agenda, that it's just a little bit more formal and maybe more recognition to it. That was the thinking behind that.
And I don't want to make it a debate, but in my experience, it's the very first thing, and as we did today, like you started with that, and then you went into the agenda, but whatever everyone feels.
Well, how about if I compromise at the council committee, I'll do it first, and then the council minutes will be part of the agenda. Does that work for you, Councillor Idris? No?
Whatever works for everyone.
Okay, any other questions there? Oh, okay, Alan?
It'd be simpler Mohammed's way because you always put it in the wrong order in the council meeting.
Okay, from now on, I tell you what, we'll do it, Councillor Idris's way, we'll do it at the very beginning, prior to the agenda there, okay. Good point there, okay.
So to do that, then we'll just take it right out of the procedural bylaw, and then it'll be there and you'll just do it before the meeting
Right,
starts.
yeah, we'll do that, okay.
It might be simpler.
Yeah, yeah. That way I won't screw up as much on that, so, okay. I appreciate you fixing me there, Councillor Idris, okay. Okay, any other questions on this one? So this will go back to council for a formal approval then? Okay, let's move on to Safe Communities Committee bylaw. Amy, you're on the floor again.
Thank you. Through the chair to mayor and council. I've recently updated the Safe Communities Committee bylaw after the committee itself recommended that the number of citizens at large members be increased due to increased interest from residents to serve on the committee. So the following updates have been made. Removing 2 requirements under duties and responsibilities to align with other city boards, committees, and commissions, as well as current practice. Increasing the number of citizens at large from 9 to 10, and that is a total of 14 members now on the committee, if the bylaw is approved. Decreasing the age for youth members from 16 to 15. Outlining the process for youth member applications, which is exactly the same as citizen at large, it just wasn't included before. Including a member of the Municipal Enforcement Department on the committee in an advisory non-voting role. Clarifying how and when council members on the committee are appointed. Adding a subsection that allows the committee to meet virtually. And providing authority to the committee to approve expenditures that are included in the committee's annual budget. So if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the recommendation is to be forwarded to council.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Prentice?
This seems like a pretty large committee, that one. If you want to go to 14, is there Is that the biggest one we got going, or what is the reason for needing so many to make those decisions, I wonder?
Through the chair to Councillor Prentice, I unfortunately don't know if that is the largest one. Possibly Park and Recs may have a large number. Since it's been created, since it went from the policing committee to Save Communities, they've always had 13 members on there. And the committee in the past has had trouble recruiting members, but now for some reason there's a large increase in serving. And the last 2 applications that the committee reviewed, there was quite a bit of discussion back and forth because they thought that both members would be really great committee members. So then I suggested in the meeting that if they really wanted both, that I could amend the bylaw and take it to council for discussion.
Do you suggest going? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's hard to make decisions when you have that many there too, whatever with. Yeah, I know, yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay, yeah, Amy, yeah.
Through the chair to mayor and council, we don't have I don't want to say a lot of debate, but most of the time, all of the committee members are on the same page with all of the items. So there's enough debate that the items are worth bringing forward, but they all seem to be on the same page. So there's not too much back and forth between that large number.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Councillor Jessica.
I'm just looking at item 511, and it appears that they've made a change, but it's not highlighted, where the officer in charge of the Brooks RCMP or their designate of the Brooks RCMP is removed. So is officer in charge specific enough that they will know that's who they mean?
Through the chair to Councillor Jessica, the definition of officer in charge already has the local RCMP detachment in it, so it's just kind of redundant to include it in the text of the bylaw as well.
Councillor Woodrup?
Just to play devil's advocate a little bit here, if we're gonna amend, so it sounds like we're asked to amend the bylaw because of like one person, right? Like somebody wants to, join the board. I don't know, does that set a precedent of, people like, oh, I really want to be on the board, or I think this person would be great, and then we're just gonna amend bylaws to expand the committees, by a member. Like, I know it's unfortunate if somebody doesn't, isn't selected to sit on the board, but I would just maybe some caution to that, I guess. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm sure whoever's the applicant, the 2 applicants would be great additions. My only concern is, it seems like quite a bit to make an accommodation for, for one member. And then if we're doing that with a lot of boards, then maybe they do get too big. Like, it sounds like this one, meshes well, but maybe we'd run into problems in the future if we do this.
Through the chair to Councillor Wardrop, you're right, it could set a precedence that if someone or other people are interested in a different board or committee, we could possibly bring it to council for discussion each time. It may be easier rather than doing the actual bylaw just to bring it to council for discussion first, rather than doing the work and then not having it go through. Another possibility is depending on if this person is with an organization or something like that in Brooks, if they could be brought on as like we have some non-voting members as well. So they're still there and can give input, but they don't increase that number of members that are voting.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because I think in a lot of boards that I'm on, if you get, the changeover, it happens pretty consistent. So if they don't get on that board this time, they might in 6 or 7 months down the road, if they're interested in that, because so. Yeah.
I could just see that kind of inviting some contention too, right? That we approve this board member, but not this board member who wants to get on, and then it kind of seems like playing favorites, it could be unfair. It could be perceived negatively as well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think. I don't,
Okay, Alan.
Just for clarification, Amy, this was brought forward at the request of the committee or the member that didn't get selected?
It was brought forward at the request of the committee.
Okay, yeah, okay. So are we fine with this one here? But I think we have to be cognizant in the future, though. I think, yeah, we could open up a can of worms on that. Because I've seen enough boards, whatever, you have a ton of people, then sometimes they shrink down, you're scrambling for people, whatever. We sort of, go the ebb and lows of a lot of boards there too, eh? So, yeah, so, but I think certainly to be careful in the future, yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Wardrop.
are there a lot of subcommittees too in this committee? Like, is there like a certain area that, is there a reason why the group is so large or why it's expanding? Is there a expansion of subcommittees maybe?
Through the chair to Councillor Wardrop. This committee has members from the city and the county, but there, unfortunately, in the last 2 years, there haven't really been any subcommittees. But before that, the main one that they had was the mock accident subcommittee, where we brought in high school students and set up a drunk driving scenario with the RCMP and EMS. And I believe there was one for swimming. I can't remember. Swim to Survive, I think is what it was called. But there's not, would be 2 or 3.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so this will come back to council for approval then too, okay. Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, the last one here, the Alberta Provincial Police Transition Study. I brought this forward here because I don't know if we really had debate from this council here on the plans, the proposed plans of the provincial government to bring in a provincial police force. And I don't know if we can really discuss much today on it because I think a lot of us really don't know the pros and the cons of it. And I know there's a meeting on January 20th. We got a group of people coming into town there. I think it'd be an advantage to us to sort of attend that meeting there. And secondly, the minister Maydew is here at the end of the month there to hear his side of the story there. So I really don't have too much. I kind of just wanted to appoint Councillor Goodenough to sort of be our liaison, and so you have to, if you have no problem with that, basically, if you can attend, make sure that you attend both of those meetings, do the research on it, and then report back to council, and then we can kind of have a bigger debate on that. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions on this one here. No other questions on it? No, and rightfully so. Because we don't know, and I think we should be open-minded on both ends of it too. I don't think we, as politicians, oh, this is the way I like, but I think we have to listen to both sides to give a fair assessment of that, so. Okay, any other questions on that one? Okay, Sandra. Oh, sorry, did you have a question? Sorry.
To say, is there actually a group that is more neutral? Because both groups have big claims in the sense of what is going to change and what is not going to change and things like that.
Yeah, if you can find one, let us know and pass it along to Councillor Goodenough then.
Okay.
Okay, Sandra.
Thank you. Actually, this has to do with the committee that was just discussed, Safe Communities. You have 14 people, or 13, or 15. Can you please tell me how many staff are actually being paid to attend that meeting?
We have 4 or 5. Can I get the exact? It's myself, a CPO, Safe Communities Facilitator, Protective Services Secretary for notes. That's all for city, and then RCMP is separate.
So I think not only the membership needs to be looked at, but I think your number of staff may need to be looked at. That's pretty expensive, because if those meetings go on for 2 hours even.
Alan?
I don't think all the staff get paid. Some of them are management, so they don't get paid overtime.
Okay. Any other questions?
One more, and this may actually be a budget question. I'm not really 100% sure, but Amy can certainly answer it, I think. A question I didn't ask is, are there going to be any solar crosswalks crosswalk lights installed this year, and if so, where, please?
So it was included in the budget for 2 locations. I don't have them off the top of my head, but there is a list, and I can get it to you tomorrow.
Yeah, I appreciate it, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Okay, okay, that's it. So do I get a motion to adjourn? Okay, yeah. Council, good enough, 5:10. Whew, got out, everybody nice and early there.